Well, hello there. Welcome to the first edition of our Data Discovery channel, which is a companion to the Data Discovery blog, which you can access online at this address there. Today we're going to have a look at an interesting feature that comes along with the product from the company I work for, MicroStrategy. It's called HyperIntelligence. So what does that mean? Well, let's have a quick demonstration. Let's go to a browser. And then in that browser, let's look for a local town in the area where I live, which is the home county. So let's look at Aylesbury, for instance. So what happens when I type in Aylesbury? I get the results of the search, but you'll notice that every word Aylesbury there is actually underlined in a blue line. And if I hover over this and click, suddenly, as if by magic, I get all sorts of interesting stats about the topic that interests me, which is a study of crime in the home counties. So there I can see that the deprivation score for Aylesbury, the average, is 15. Now, the lower the score, the higher the deprivation. So 15 actually is quite good. It's actually not a very deprived area. It's only got, it's a quite prosperous town in the home counties. We can see that for the whole year there have been a large number of crimes. Now, obviously that seems a lot, but there's, the police is very good at reporting all sorts of crimes now. And what we're interested in there really is what's the feel of the quality of life in that area. So of all those crimes, we can see that, there's 3,705 violent crimes and nearly 2,000 ASBOs. So ASBOs are antisocial behaviour orders, and there's basically people being naughty and annoying, but not really doing something of a high criminal nature. So you can get the feel about how pleasant a place is to live in just by looking at the stats for violent crime and ASBOs. Now that needs to be taken in consideration with the population. So what we try to work out there is what's the sort of violent crime per area of population, and there you can see it's at 32 and 17. So just to give you a bit of a contrast, we're going to now search for another town in the area where I live in called Luton. Now Luton is famous as being a hotbed of crime and issues, social issues. So let's see exactly what the picture is. So let's do the same thing. And there we can see that the crime number is a lot higher. The deprivation is, the lowest amount of deprivation is 6, which is actually probably not correct. I need to check my data. But that gives us a summary. So really, what is that telling us? Well, it's a function of my software, MicroStrategy, called HyperIntelligence, and it allows you to immediately pop up relevant context information on the web for anything that you might be browsing for. So instead of having to fire up the software and look at stuff, I can get immediately relevant stats which tell me a lot more about what is going on with that area. If we go and have a look in a bit more detail, then we can then go to the software itself, and we're going to run something called a dossier, which will give us a lot more information and a lot more of an overview about what's going on with crime in the home counties. So I'm just waiting for the software to load. There it is. I'll go to the relevant project, log in. There you go. Activate the thing. There's a lot of things I need to fix. But finally we're there, and what we're going to do is going to run the Home Counties Crime Explorer dossier. So a dossier is like a dashboard, but we call it dossier because effectively that's what it is. Okay, so that's the edit screen. Because I've got a full license, I can do anything I want, so I get full editing powers. But we're going to go into the what's called the presentation screen, which is what a normal user would see. So there you have it. So if I click on all, I'm going to get an overview of the crime situation in the important towns of my home county. I'll explain quickly what you see there. What you've got is each area there is something called an LSOA. So it's a census unit of population which has roughly between 1,000 and 3,000 people. The number there that you see is the IMD, so it's Index of Multiple Deprivation Decile. So it's a classification that says the higher number you have, the lower the deprivation, and the lower number you have, the higher the deprivation. Okay, so basically there you can see that 10 is not deprived, whereas if we zoom in on one of the town centres, I'm going to pick Luton as an example because it's a fun town to pick on. You can see there that number one, the population density is a lot higher and the deprivation is a lot higher as well. Okay, let's do an F11 there quickly just to make sure that we can see a better view of the screen. So let's zoom in on Luton again. Thank you, software. Nearly there. So you can see that Luton has got some issues. It's very deprived. Now, what's the situation regarding crime? Well, let's pick area number 1, which is the most deprived area in Luton. Okay, 1 means, you know, it's not fun there. And let's look at the spread of crime there. So what we've got, first of all, is a large prevalence of antisocial behaviour. And that's across the whole year. So that's on February 2018 to February 2019. Violence and sexual offences is quite prevalent as well. Now, that also includes, as far as I can tell, things like domestic violence. And what we've got there is we've got the prevalence of, we've got the violence and sexual offences, and then we've got the resolution of the crime. So you can see that a large amount of people are getting away with crime. In some cases, other outcomes mean it's been passed on to another agency or it's still in progress. And that's where a sanction has been provided. So you can see a very small proportion of crimes that actually result in, you know, punishment for the perpetrator. And that seems to be a pattern anywhere you go. So if I pick an area of another area within Luton, you'll see that it looks pretty much the same. An awful lot of people are just not getting away. So the crime is being reported, but it's either not investigated or when investigated doesn't result in anything interesting. What we can do is we can flick along all the different areas and we can see the sort of mix of crime that occurs. And you can see that some areas have got a different mix of crime. So, you know, violence becomes less prevalent. There are other thefts. So that could be, well, not burglaries, it's just people nicking stuff. Let's have a look at a less deprived area of Luton. So same thing, ASBOs, shoplifting. So that's clearly an area where there's a lot of shops, and clearly that's where shoplifting happens. And if we click on shoplifting, what we find is that for shoplifting, the higher prevalence of people being sent to prison or being punished is a lot higher. So it seems that shoplifting is a crime for which you get punished the most. So what you could draw is a quick conclusion to say, okay, so I can do violent crime or vehicle crime. I get away with it. I'm not even being prosecuted there. Look, violence and sexual offences, same thing. Antisocial behaviour, there's no prosecution there because that's it. You know, the ASBO is the punishment. Criminal damage and arson, and, well, hang on a minute, is anybody being punished for any of the crime happening in that area? No, it doesn't look like it, does it? Okay, so let's pick an area which is more deprived, okay? Let's look at violence and sexual offences. And that's interesting as well. We don't seem to get people being prosecuted, so I suspect something's gone wrong with the software. I'll need to check what's going on. Let's just pick on Luton in particular and see what happens. And you can see that the hyperintelligence function is active within the software itself. So I can actually, within a dossier, still get summaries from hyperintelligence. So that's like recursive intelligence. I love it. It's so clever. So let's see. Yeah, there you go. So just going back on the theme. So there was an area with high levels of shoplifting. Which I can't find now. As you can see, there's a lot of polishing to be done before that's ready to be released on the YouTube. But actually, people screwing up is quite funny, especially when it's me. Let's see. Okay, so I think that's the town centre in Luton. There's bound to be some shoplifting there. Yeah, look, there you go. So shoplifting, what's going on there? Oh my God, some people are being sent to prison. Violence and sexual offences, some people are being sent to prison. Other thefts, no, not many. Theft from the person. Well, I mean, the thing that happens a lot there is you can see that for all the crime reported, there's just a lot of people who are getting away with it. Yeah. So, you know, when you hear in the news that all the police has lost control of the situation, the thing is, I think what's happening is there's just a sea of people misbehaving, and really, there's just not enough resources to punish all the crime that happens. I mean, what sort of system would you have if you managed to solve and punish every single crime that happens? You'd have to have a massive police state. I mean, you know, something a bit like China, I would imagine. Anyway, that's that. What I'll do is I'll stop the recording now, and I hope that's been interesting. I will hope I can hear myself, and we'll see what happens. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.